All right, it's Wednesday, May 17th. This is an end of the day SPY recap, and today we end up with a green 2-up bar. Took out the high the previous day in a whole bunch of days. Closed pretty strong near the high that day, and we look like we finally might be breaking out of this very tight range that has been in place for many, many days now. Again, it could always fail, but given the continuity now on the weekly chart is back to green. We have a 2-up on the green. You know, it's kind of an inside bar up. We have targets here. We've always been looking at that 418 area. Again, I've been talking about for a long time how this whole range in here, once we kind of tested these lows and started up, even though we've been pausing for a long time, I've been anticipating these highs being tested, you know, before we attempt to maybe go lower. You know, in the weekly chart, we've had a lot of buying down here, and then we've just been chopping around. So once we kind of failed to break out of the bottom of the range, I've always been expecting that top to be hit. I've had this broadening formation in here. If we can get above there, then we see on the monthly chart, if we get to the 430 area, this is like the 418 area. So it looks like we're doing that now until proven otherwise. I discussed yesterday on the on the closing video, even though we were a little red on the week, if we were going to eventually go to the upside, we want to see the weekly chart turn green. That happened here. I'll get to the structure in a minute. Kind of at this area this morning, when it turned the weekly chart green, everything was back to the upside. And again, coming into the day, I know I shot a video after this red day, kind of anticipating we were going to at least test lower and then kind of see if we continue or fail. I was certainly, looking out for a potential failure if we tried to break lower. But what happened was pre-market, between the blue lines here, the market was really starting out near the highs of the pre-market and also right at the highs of yesterday. So once I saw the pre-market was up big, after this bar, I want today, I would have wanted today to kind of start below the midpoint of this bar and kind of be testing the pre-market lows. That's how the follow through to the downside takes place. But instead we were opening up right near the highs of yesterday. So it almost looked like one of those kicker kind of patterns where you have a big red day one day, but then you gap the next day green, and then it traps all those people on the wrong side. And that's why you get the big red one bar and then a big green the other way, or it could be green and then you can gap down and have a big red bar near the lows. But anyway, we started up near the highs. If you look at the structure on the day, first bar kind of started down, but then it had a little buying and a pretty big buying in here. Then we come down on bar number 2. At this point, I was already long a few stocks, which I'll show you in a second, and I really wasn't too excited about getting short because, again, that I wanted to be below the midpoint of this bar and having, kind of looking like we're going to break through the pre-market lows to really get to those areas. So once I saw this bar, and then this green bar hit, to me, if we were going to pause in here orderly and then get another red bar, push, I would have maybe tried a short trade to go short. And then, it just kind of held and started up, grinded. And once I saw it kind of come back up here after like an hour, I kind of knew we were going to be testing that high. I was already long a bunch of stocks. We tested that high. We had a big volatile bar here. Everyone thought we were going to sell, but then look at what happens. You hold in here, inside bar. There's a great buy signal. Just in general, once you kind of know you're in this tight range, a big breakout could be occurring. And, we didn't want to reverse from these and come all the way back down. And we held. This was just something, to buy. And then I'm not surprised you got this very strong move. I'm not saying, I would have predicted it, but it's just something that when you're in this very tight range, this was bound to happen. So, I was trading a whole bunch of long stocks today. I bought Meta early and that went up big, and bought Tesla early and that went up nicely. And then I actually had an Adobe trade when that kind of just held the midpoint of the first bar and started up. I bought it there and that moved up all day. So you knew it was kind of a strong market overall. And that's another reason why, you can kind of judge that once you break out of this tight little area in here with movement that looks like, it held its first potential broadening area that could have reversed lower. It then gets the breakout at some point was going to be powerful. So let's put it that way. And now we got that today. So now let's anticipate higher. As long as we hold the midpoint of this bar, we should be heading up to that 418 area. We'll see on the weekly chart now with a 2-up week if we should hit our target. Whether we and there's a whole bunch of targets up here. Once we hit that, do we just pause and then continue those higher targets? I'm actually going to be away for the next 2 days, so no trading for me for the rest of the week. But I'm biased to the upside for sure. We'll see how how this week comes to an end after these 2 days. Anything's possible. You could fail, but at this point to fail, you're going to have to get below the midpoint of this bar. You're going to have to turn this weekly chart, get below the open again and get that red. As long as we hold there for the next, 2 days, if it closes green, then we'll expect higher into next week, that type of thing. So a lot of things kind of unfolded today back to the upside, and you got to go with that from this point forward, and we'll see if this breakout, in fact, really picks up a little steam, and it should hit this target, and then we'll see at that point whether what kind of you just want to see a nice pause there to get higher. You don't want to see any major reversals happen there, and if we do get up there, the major reversal is going to have to occur on the weekly chart in some form. So we'll get into that next week. So again, I'm going to be gone, but today it was a good day to the upside, and I think we're heading higher, and for the foreseeable future.